Howdy everyone. So I wanted to give a few thoughts on something that I mentioned in a previous video. The fear of failure and doubting yourself when it comes to Elden Ring invasions. I spoke about this in the context of when I initially got into PvP. How in the early days I was going into invasions primarily anxious about losing rather than looking at ways to improve and where I actually was doing pretty well. And that anxiety obviously kept me from finding ways to improve or realizing where I was doing well. So it was sort of a bit of a vicious cycle. But eventually I overcame that sort of mental block once I got more comfortable with the unpredictability of invasions. An aspect of them that I think is the primary draw for a lot of players, including myself. However, for newer players, I think that this unpredictability and high likelihood of failure presents a pretty tall barrier to entry when it comes to invading. Nobody wants to get up on the virtual stage and get smacked down over and over. It's totally understandable that the majority of people just don't view that as fun or fulfilling. Especially when your losses can feel completely out of your control and impossible to anticipate. After all, the whole point of PvP is to win, so if you're not doing that, then why are you even bothering? And even for the more practiced veteran invaders, at least speaking from my experience, this feeling still surfaces, albeit less and less often over time, but it can still cause you to doubt your own skills, and you might start to feel that you've hit your personal skill ceiling. You can only get worse from there, so again, why even bother anymore? But the truth of the matter is that regardless of your level of experience, the majority of invasions are going to result in your loss. Like, even the best of the best have to put in tons of practice and fail hundreds of times over before they can maintain a, let's say, 50% win-loss ratio. Those top-tier players are definitely the exception, not the rule. To win invasions consistently is to overcome both the design of the game and the worst behaviors of its player base. Bottom line is that there are just too many variables in every invasion that are setting you up to fail. Elden Ring, especially in comparison to previous Souls games, has a litany of structural and mechanical flaws that are more hostile to invaders than ever. And since nearly all of these flaws only serve to disadvantage invaders, players are almost explicitly encouraged by the game to exploit them as much as possible. Nothing in the game is providing deterrence or resistance to any of this behavior either. In fact, it almost rewards it by allowing hosts and their phantoms to turn their brains off and still beat the most skilled invaders. If you're red, you stand a very high chance of just getting blendered by Ashes of War and magic spam within a minute of spawning. And let's say you do manage to kill one of a host's two phantoms. There's still a coin toss chance that they have the blue ring on, and that within 30 seconds, a hunter is going to spawn into the world, and you're right back to being in a 3v1. I've had invasions where, you go up against essentially an army of hunters because the host keeps running away while they keep spawning into the world, and all of a sudden you've taken out 6 blues, and the host is in no more danger than they were to begin with. And this battle of attrition essentially drains your resources at no detriment to the host, so you're at an even further disadvantage by the time you're able to engage that host. And this is to say nothing of how the Taunter's tongue is consistently abused by gankers. You'll spawn into a world and see that there's another red, and you think that you're in for a fun little 2v2. The red goes down, and you see the host turn off the tongue, and you immediately realize what you're actually in for. And this is why an adjustment to the Taunter's tongue is one of the most requested changes from the PvP community, perhaps making it so a host can't turn it off once they've been invaded. But I'm not going to spend too much time trying to craft theoretical solutions here. I'm not even convinced that FromSoft will ever consider changing how the TT works, honestly. If it was ever going to happen, it likely would have been with the release of the DLC, in my opinion. But I would still love to be proven wrong on this. Point being that you, as an invader, are up against some of the most one-sided scenarios in all of Souls games. So if you find yourself on a loss streak, don't be too hard on yourself. Practice makes less than perfect, but you're still going to feel it bit by bit if you stick with it. And for my part, the biggest improvement that I experienced through practice was just being able to maintain a level of confidence in myself regardless of an invasion's outcome. If I find myself losing over and over, I generally chalk it up to either a bad day on my part or bad situations that I'm being dropped into. So either I'm making errors, which can always be addressed and improved upon through practice, or the invasion is set up in a way that those errors wouldn't have mattered anyway. And at the risk of coming off a little arrogant here, I would say that the majority of the time it's the latter. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is don't view or assess your invasions exclusively through the lens of performance, because that's the fastest way to drain all of the fun out of the experience. You might even compare this a little bit to how you generally approach bosses in these games. Except with bosses, you can predictably run back the same fight over and over again and refine a particular approach to a particular scenario. And that still results in you failing over and over in most cases. Then when you look at invasions, there is still that aspect of repeated failure, but without the benefit of the predictability. No one invasion is going to prepare you or set you up to be better at all other invasions. With bosses, you theoretically have infinite attempts to beat one enemy one time. With invasions, you typically have one attempt to beat any variety of enemies any number of times over. You just can't win them all. So that's some of my quick thoughts on failure in this game. And remember, it is just that, a video game. And on a quick side note, I'm contemplating putting together a video of just invasions that I've lost, some of which I'm sure will be quite embarrassing for me. We'll see. It kind of depends on how I'm feeling about it and what clips I'm able to gather. Anyway, I'll catch y'all later. Take care, and thanks for watching. A quick post-recording insert here at the end. I realized in editing that I left out any mention of overleveled phantoms as another huge pervasive problem. As we all know, the downscaling on phantoms is essentially non-existent in Elden Ring, and this means that there is always a chance of just getting two-shot by a level 300 plus babysitter. And ironically, but not surprisingly, this is especially likely at lower level brackets, such as rune level 80, which is very popular for invaders looking for a more quote-unquote honest invasion experience, essentially avoiding the meta brackets. The game's systems are, again, erasing the importance of skillful play, since these encounters are so one-sided usually that the outcome is essentially predetermined. It puts you in a situation where one simple error can mean your defeat, no matter how well you've been playing up till that point. Now, the Seamless Co-op mod on PC, to my understanding, has implemented a rather simple, elegant solution to this by just matching invaders with the highest level in the host's entire party rather than the host's level. So overleveled gang squads have been effectively eliminated in that environment. But Seamless is its own animal, and I play on PSN, so I can't really speak from firsthand experience how that actually feels from an invader's perspective. But anyway, I didn't want to leave this particular point out since it's been a pervasive issue since Elden Ring's launch, and something that newer invaders might not consider at first. So yeah, that's the final point that I would throw in here at the end.